For Redemption Church of Houston, a radically inclusive community of hope seeking to lead Jesus-centered lives. The following sermon is from the fifth Sunday in Lent in 2026. I'm Brandon, and I'm one of our pastors. This Lenten season, our sermons are inviting us to behold God. In that vein, this particular sermon invites us to get curious about knowing and being known by God. It also guides us towards Holy Week, as we consider Jesus' move towards Judea and his raising Lazarus from the dead. We'll read from this text in just a moment, but first, let's just give ourselves some space to arrive in this time as we observe a moment of stillness. Now a reading from the Gospel according to John. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, and after hearing that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, then he will be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Thomas, who was called the Twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." Then when she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house counseling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there's a stench because he's been dead 4 days." And Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to him, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. The word of God for us, the people of God.
I find myself a bit of a hobby seeker, maybe a professional hobbyist. I don't know if we have any people who enjoy a good hobby. That's the sermon today. Pick up a hobby. Like literally every 2 weeks, I'll have a new thing that is my new obsession. But one that has stuck for a few years now is poetry. I like poetry. I like to read poetry. I like to write poetry. I'm such a nerd that I like to read about writing poetry. And a few months back, I found myself at Brazos bookstore, support local, and picked up a copy of Mary Oliver's A Poetry Handbook. In it, she suggests that the subjects that stir the heart are not many after all, and they do not change. And in returning to this story of Lazarus this week, I have indeed found my heart stirred. And I was reminded a line of poetry from musician Lana Del Rey, and it says simply, "I love you, but you don't understand me. I love you, but you don't understand me." This is a deeply human experience, the feeling of being misunderstood by those closest to you. So two things are true here. One, this feeling isn't new, but two, we're also living in very siloed, isolated times. So in 2023, then U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy declared that loneliness was now considered an epidemic, stating that it has become a major health risk to the public, both on an individual and societal level. And if we look at some data that they compiled for this advisory, we can see, and we'll rush through this, but it paints a general picture here. Between 2003 and the year 2020, social isolation increased by 24 hours a month. Household family engagement decreased by 5 hours a month. Companionship saw a decrease of 14 hours a month. Social engagement with friends decreased 20 hours a month. Non-household family social engagement decreased by 6.5 hours a month, and social engagement with others decreased by 10 hours a month. Just let that sit for a second. Recent data are showing a progression of this trend. So just in 2025, a survey on behalf of the American Psychological Association concluded that half or more of U.S. adults report signs of loneliness. You can see behind me, divided among these categories of isolation, feeling left out, or lacking companionship. And the study goes on to show how loneliness negatively impacts the quality of life and our ability to do things like plan, make decisions, and take care of ourselves. Now, I'm well aware that right now in our world, we are in no shortage of reasons to despair. And I totally get it if you wish I hadn't started out this sermon on such a bummer note with moody poetry and bummer statistics. But here's the thing about this Lenten season that we find ourselves in. It invites us to get honest. Honest about our longing, our grief, our doubt, the dead places in our lives. The prayers we have stopped praying. The hope we have lost, the patterns and habits that we feel trapped in and trapped by, our grief that we have not fully processed, and yes, the isolation that can so easily and so quickly wholly encompass us. So if our reality of feeling isolated and unknown is introducing this decay into our lives, then Lent is simply asking us to name that and to do the uncomfortable work of just sitting with it, not judging it and certainly not judging ourselves, And then it invites us to get curious about what God may be up to, how God might bring restoration and breathe new life into our broken places. We titled this Lenten collection of sermons, Beholding God. So in that vein, I'd like to move us in the direction of curiosity this morning. I wonder if you'd be up for us getting curious about our ideas about God, specifically what God is like and how God relates to us. If Lent is inviting us to get honest, then let's just get into it this morning. Spiritually, physically, mentally, our whole embodied selves need connection. We need to know and be known. But here's the thing, that's actually kind of terrifying. What if I'm known and then rejected? What if I'm known and found to be lacking? What if I'm just too hard to know? What if I'm just too easily misunderstood? And some of us church folk here like to encourage people with this encouragement that God fully knows you. But I'm not sure we are always aware of how discomforting that statement can actually come across. We think what we mean is God knows the us that we want to be known. But in reality, God knows the us we spend our whole lives trying to hide. Being seen and known fully is not the comfort we often wish it was. And in and of itself is actually kind of terrifying. Like, let's just sit here for a moment. Being known means being known, like the actual me and the actual you, not just the me and you that we spend our lives trying to project. Because if people just know the projection, then are we really fully known? There's an established outline in a certain brand, a certain sort of preaching, where the preacher begins with this encouragement of God's full knowledge of you, but then leads us to a place of God's deep displeasure, dissatisfaction with you. And I wonder how often the people who are hearing this and under this sort of preaching are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or when we even share with them that God fully knows them, are they just in the back of their minds waiting, okay, but here's the next part when you tell me what a trash human being I am. I'd wager that in a room of this size, many of us have encountered this flavor of preaching and maybe have considered taking a full step back from faith because maybe the God we read about in scriptures can't understand us here and now with our complicated lives in 2026. Or maybe the God we see represented in the church writ large is simply not worth our time. One person I spoke with recently got really candid about this. They said, I've needed time to mourn what Christianity has taken from me and find a way forward that feels more authentic. They express something like a need to mourn a childhood that for them was marked by religious shame and fear. And I always want to pause in these moments and hold space for those of us who can resonate on some level with this complicated relationship with faith. And I need you to hear a few things, 3 things specifically from the outset. 1, your presence among us is a gift. Full stop. God sees you as a gift. You are a gift. 2, you find yourself in a space right now where a number of people have walked a similar path. There are others of us just like you seated right here in this room with similar stories, similar doubts, similar pain, like let's grab coffee sometime and talk about it. And 3, every single person in this room has yet to arrive. Absolutely all of us are on some sort of a journey. So when we do this, statistically speaking, strange thing of meeting up to get to know another human being, you will find that while we share so much in common with one another, our journeys are still unique. Like this makes sense on just a obvious level. If you and I were the same, I would no longer be me, I would be you, but alas, I am me and you are you. But if you can indulge the artsy guy who started today with a Lana Del Rey quote, trying to get a bit scientific for a moment, we are also biologically unique. Like out of the over 8 billion people on the planet Earth right now, you are still one of one. And we can even expand this further to all the people who have come before us. So over the 118 billion people who have ever lived, you are still one of one. And our inherent uniqueness makes the concept of knowing and being known exciting, but if we're getting real honest, also a little intimidating. And so we turn to things like the love languages, the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, star signs. I mean, pick your poison here. Any number of tools we can get our hands around to help us understand ourselves better and understand our neighbors better. And some of you at this point may be wondering when I'm getting to the text. And if you're not wondering that, maybe now you are. And we're getting there right now, but I just wanted to make sure we really establish two things here. First, God has not made us to live in isolation. Our faith at its core is deeply communal, and God has also created each and every one of us unique. What I find remarkable about our text this morning is that God not only relates to us as a people and as the church, but also has created us uniquely and relates to us uniquely. So on that note, we'll dive into the text. We're in John chapter 11, which we just read from. As usual, the options that are available to you, you have the Bible and the seat back in front of you. You can pull up on your phone or just read it on the screen behind me. We're in John 11, verse 1. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." Now we know that Jesus knew Mary, Martha, and Lazarus well. He would frequently stay with them in their home in Bethany when he would travel to Jerusalem. This is a habit, a custom of most Jews who did this once a year, made this journey. And some more than that, some would venture to say that Jesus's relationship with these three stretches back to their childhood. And it's not outlandish to claim that they would have potentially been lifelong friends, as Jesus's family stopped at their home on their annual journey. And in this passage, we see Mary and Martha sending this message to Jesus that Lazarus is deeply sick. But they don't just say Lazarus, but they use this description, right? The one you love. Suffices to say, they are not just acquaintances, but close, intimate friends. Now that's all well and good, but if we jump down to verse 6, the waters get a little bit more muddy here. In verse 6, it says, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Wait, what? You sure that's the move here, Jesus? Your good friend is deeply sick and you just want to hang out where you're at for a bit longer. Like if my close friend was on their deathbed, was deeply ill, like I'm getting in the car, Jesus. This is not the Jesus we expect. This is the Jesus who, in fact, defies our expectations and our motives and seems to be doing something beyond our small missions in the world. So what's going on here? Well, let's back up to include verses 4 and 5 and bring some Lenten curiosity to this passage. Verse 4. But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Did you catch it? That accordingly word is key here. Jesus is confident that death does not get the last word in Lazarus' story. Jesus does not seek to explain away the pain or minimize or play down the hurt, but insists that death and decay and despair will not have the final say. Now let's get honest here. How many times have we cried out for God to intervene in a specific situation, whether in our own lives or the lives of a friend or a loved one, and found no such intervention? I couldn't help but think of a verse from a song here. This is by artist, singer-songwriter Andy Squires, who we actually got to have here. Super cool. And he sings, "And love never fails. A weapon will prosper, a levee will break. The heartbreaker gives you more than you can take. the trouble in trusting a Savior not seen, you find out he don't fail when he don't intervene. You find out he don't fail when he don't intervene. You see, real life shows us that we don't always receive the divine intervention that we so deeply long for. God does not always act in the ways we want. I have yet to find the exact order of words in prayer to where if I pray this certain thing in this certain way, God will answer in this certain way, right? But in this passage, we receive a gift. The gift of seeing a picture of God's glory at work in our ordinary life. The life where prayers go unanswered and God seems to not know us that well or not care about our prayers that much, maybe. So Jesus doesn't go to Judea when we want him to here. He does go, despite warnings for his personal safety. Jesus is propelled by love to make this journey. And now let's not miss where we are like right now in the church liturgical season as we approach Passion Sunday and Holy Week. Jesus' turn here is a turn towards death. It's a turn towards the cross. So as we pick up here in verse 11, it says, after saying this, he told them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to awaken him. And in the text here, we see this familiar pattern of Jesus' language leading to misunderstanding. So he clarifies, then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. So Jesus does, and finds that Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days, and encounters Martha, who begins how I would imagine you or I would. Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. Jesus here finds Martha in mourning and distress and begins comforting her through this conversation. And this dialogue, they're discussing, right, theology and the scriptures as Jesus is intellectually engaging with her. And here's what I want to present to you this morning. God created us uniquely. He knows us intimately, and he relates to us accordingly. God created us uniquely, knows us intimately, and relates to us accordingly. Jesus understands precisely what Martha needs in this moment. She wants to understand the situation. She wants to reason. She's not really interested in platitudes and probably isn't even looking for like a warm embrace, a hug in this sort of situation. She's more interested in these why questions. So Jesus, who created Martha uniquely and knows her intimately, then relates to her accordingly. He reasons with her. He's not off-put or offended by Martha's questions. So let's pause. Jesus is not off-put or offended by our questions. In fact, he will meet us there. Returning to our text, Martha, knowing that Mary could use some comfort as well, goes to get her. And Mary begins the same way her sister did. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. And Jesus began to weep. Verse 35, Jesus began to weep, or as you may be familiar with it, Jesus wept, is indeed among the most famous verses in all of Scripture. And I think a lot of people who can tie this verse to the story of Lazarus place Jesus outside the tomb as this is happening. But that's not where they are here. They do not approach the tomb until verse 38. Jesus weeps when Mary approaches him as he is walking towards her house, and she collapses at his feet and begins sobbing. And then Jesus begins to weep. Jesus weeps with Mary. In this moment, Mary is not looking for intellectual debate or reasoning or theological debates or like a Theo Bro podcast in this moment, but needs space to enter into her despair. And Jesus stops in the middle of the road to enter into Mary's grief alongside her. Though the sisters come to Jesus with the same situation, even that same opening statement, the care they need from him is unique. Jesus, who created Mary uniquely and knows her intimately, relates to her accordingly. But the passage continues, and there's one more sibling in the story, is there not? So in verse 38, we'll pick up. Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was laying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, and his hands and feet bound with the strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to him, "Unbind him and let him go." We see how Jesus ministers to the two sisters, but what about Lazarus? Like, think about it as Lazarus is lying on his deathbed. Would he not wonder, where is my friend Jesus, who I've heard these stories of him as a healer, but now that I most need his healing, where's he at? Like, he's nowhere to be found. I'm sure he would have wondered, does Jesus actually love me after all? Does Jesus even care at all about me? And as Jesus approaches the tomb, he does so, yes, for our benefit, for our seeing God's glory on display, but also with his deep love for his friend Lazarus front of mind. And so we see Lazarus take off his grave clothes and walk out of that tomb. Lazarus received a reminder from Jesus that for God, it's never too late. You're never too far gone. Death never gets the final word. Jesus, who created Lazarus uniquely, knows him intimately and relates to him accordingly. And in the resurrection of Lazarus, Jesus is showing me and you that whatever the dead places in our lives look like, even actual death, Jesus can and will deal with it. Jesus doesn't just solve our problems, he raises us from the dead. But here's the thing, Lazarus would one day die again. We see in this passage that Jesus has already turned toward Judea and will deal with death once and for all. He is moved by love for all of humanity to be crucified on a cross. And his death itself, meets its defeat. So, does God understand me? And if he does God still love me? Look to the cross, where Jesus expresses his great love for me and you. So great a love that he would not even allow death to separate us from this love. Like Lazarus, we too are freed from the bonds of the tomb. This is the good news. Friends, be reminded this morning that nothing is more powerful than the love of God. That the God, yes, we would often like to keep at arm's length, knows us and understands us. But not only does he know and understands us, but he loves us and will not leave us in isolation, but deeply desires for us to become awake to his loving movement towards you, towards me. His loving movement gives us safety to go out to know and be known by others, because we are completely understood and fully loved by the one who gives us our very breath in our lungs. And as I conclude here, like literally give me 60 more seconds, I want to take this one step further to say that not only does God love you and love me, but he actually also likes us. We often can theologize this idea of God's love to the point where it feels almost impersonal and formulaic. But let this story of Lazarus be our reminder that indeed God intimately relates with us. God lovingly cares for us. Yes, God even likes us. Church, may we go from this place, from the love of God, from the like of God, to embody hope to a weary world.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our community or to contribute to our work as a church, visit redemptionhou.com. Now, go with this blessing. May the grace and peace of God go with you. May you go to live rooted and established in the love of the God who created you uniquely, knows you intimately, and relates to you accordingly. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.